Welcome to the Freak Show, fellow freaks.
I'm Matthew Brockmeyer.
And I'm Krista Carmen.
And this is
Murder Coaster.
There are realms of the internet so disturbing they defy comprehension. Places literally dedicated to evil that wish to accelerate the demise of humanity. And most disturbingly, they are often run by bored teenagers. Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode is extremely disturbing and involves multiple modern and ongoing criminal cases involving a worldwide network the FBI says is one of the most disturbing things they've ever seen. We're talking about 764, a teenage internet extortionist cult of extreme nihilists using encrypted communication and a global reach to exploit and radicalize youth through digital platforms like Minecraft, Roblox, Instagram, and Discord. Basically an online youth cult and sextortion network that's been classified as a terror network by the Department of Justice and is considered a terrorist Tier 1 investigative matter by the FBI, and classified an ideological extremist network by Canada's RCMP. Listener discretion is advised, but if you are a parent, we ask you to please listen, despite how horrific it is, because this is what kids are doing on their computers today, and it is scary beyond belief. By covering these crimes, we hope to spread light and bring awareness to these horribly dark corners of the internet that children can find themselves in.
Let's begin. Prologue. Samantha.
There she goes again. Beauty queen on the way.
On December 16th, 2024, 15-year-old Natalie Lynn Rupnow, who went by Samantha, a quirky blonde from a troubled home with a glint in her eye and a weird smile, strolled into her school, Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, wearing a black t-shirt with a bullseye on it and carrying two pistols, a 9mm Glock 19 and a .22 caliber Sig Sauer P322, as well as 5 9mm magazines, 3 .22 caliber magazines, and a box containing 50 rounds of 9mm ammunition.
Samantha strode down the brightly lit halls, her sneakers squeaking as she passed the rows of lockers, and stepped into a study hall room where, in a burst of fire, she killed 14-year-old student Ruby Vergara, as well as 42-year-old teacher Aaron West, and wounded 6 others, firing 20 rounds before turning the gun on herself and firing a bullet into her head.
When law enforcement entered the school just 8 minutes after the shooting began, they found Samantha dead from a self-inflicted gunshot.
When photographs of Samantha from her father's Facebook emerged, showing her at a gun range and firing a pistol, it was quickly pointed out that she was wearing a t-shirt like the one worn by the Columbine school shooter, Eric Harris.
Eric Harris often wore shirts featuring graphics from the KMFDM German rock band, which was originally known as Kein Mehrheit für die Mehrheit, which loosely translates to no pity for the majority. And it was revealed this would have been obvious to a strange fringe culture of teenagers who were obsessed with school shootings.
Then Samantha's manifesto appeared online, a document entitled War Against Humanity, where she described humanity as filth and wrote about how she admired school shooters, saying,
"School shootings have been a big influence for teens since Columbine. If you think it's your destiny, you should go out and do the same. Don't feel sorry for family. It's your life, your choice. Truly wonderful to see someone unveil all of that hate they were holding for so long. Time to spread wrath and fear. I've been trapped and forced into my corner. I hate this corner that I'm stuck in. I hate humanity for forcing me into this little hole. I was the wrong child of the family. My parents admit they didn't want me, nor never did, even if I've grown."
She says she acquired the guns by, quote, lies, manipulation, and my father's stupidity, and describes wanting to die by suicide, but feeling like carrying out a mass shooting was, quote, better for evolution rather than just one stupid, boring suicide.
She then begins to babble some extreme far-right anti-Semitic propaganda.
These kids are often very racist, simply because they're just filled with hate, just brimming with hate, and that it affects everything they see. So they're just naturally drawn to hate groups, because for them, hatred just feels good, a balm to their own self-loathing.
And as more details emerged, very disturbingly, this weird network of nihilistic and suicidal teenagers began to reveal itself in the murk and swamp of the internet. All these kids validating and influencing each other and pushing each other to commit violent acts.
On December 18th, just 2 days later, the FBI raided the home of Alexander Paffendorf in Carlsbad, California. Alexander had been communicating with Samantha on the internet, allegedly telling her that he would, quote, arm himself with explosives and a gun, and that he would start shooting in a government building.
On January 22nd, 2025, just 5 weeks after the shooting, a 17-year-old Samantha had followed on Twitter, or X or whatever, named Solomon Henderson, walked into his school cafeteria with a 9mm semi-automatic pistol and began firing, killing one student, 16-year-old Jocelyn Escalante, and wounding another before shooting himself in the head.
On April 29th, 2025, just 4 months later, this guy, Danny Allen from Laxachie, Florida, who'd been exchanging messages with Samantha, was arrested by police for plotting 7 separate mass shootings at 7 different locations, including at least 1 police station and a church. He was found with 18 firearms and over 12,000 rounds of ammunition.
Then on August 27th, 2025, just a few months ago, Robin Westman wrote Samantha's last name, Rupnow, on the barrel of his gun before attacking the Church of the Annunciation and killing 2 small children and wounding 30 others.
Just 2 weeks later, on September 10th, 2025, a 16-year-old named Desmond Holly, who idolized Samantha and posted pictures of himself imitating her, opened fire at Evergreen High School, injuring 2 fellow students before committing suicide. He, too, was wearing a t-shirt that had been worn by Columbine school shooter Eric Harris. This one, he had made himself.
Samantha was linked to a bevy of strange online communities, including white power movements, theistic Satanists, and extreme accelerationists, calling themselves accelerationists because they're trying to accelerate humanity's demise.
Samantha followed accounts linked to the Temple of Blood, a US-based affiliate of the Order of Nine Angles, a militant theistic Satanist demon-worshipping cult associated with human sacrifice, child abuse, and violent extremism.
And her Telegram account was allegedly part of Gypsy's Continental 6.0, a channel associated with the Terrorgram Collective. And her Telegram was also linked to a channel associated with the infamous group 764.
The 764 organization, which has become infamous in the internet world of sextortion, had splintered from a group called Cult.
And both 764 and the cult are part of a larger, loosely affiliated group of hackers, online predators, and criminals known as the COM.
Followers of these bizarre online cults compete with each other to see how far they can extort a victim, and they do it all for status. They groom teens on web games like Minecraft and Roblox, entice them with gaming currency, charm them, then start showing them gore images. They're all about this real-life snuff and gore, cartel and ISIS stuff. There's a whole gore underground out there. They then get them into these private Discord channels where they blackmail these kids through sextortion, threatening them into humiliating themselves by fan signing or carving 764 and their internet handle into their bodies, hurting the family pets, writing their names in blood, even suicide and murder, all for internet kicks and status, basically bullying and trolling taken to new levels.
And these are things that kids are doing today online, unknown to their parents.
What the fuck is going on? It's like everything the Satanic Panic talked about, an international network of Satan-worshipping pedophile murderers. But it's not adults. It's not elite businessmen and evil daycares. It's bored teenagers.
In March of 2025, the FBI issued a formal warning, directed in particular to parents and educators about 764, saying, quote, "Alert number I030625. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, is warning the public of a sharp increase in the activity of 764 and other violent online networks which operate within the United States and around the globe. These networks methodically target and exploit minors and other vulnerable individuals, and it is imperative the public be made aware of the risk and the warning signs exhibited by victims. These networks use threats, blackmail, and manipulation to coerce or extort victims into producing, sharing, or live streaming acts of self-harm, animal cruelty, sexually explicit acts, and/or suicide. These networks exist on publicly available online platforms, such as social media sites, gaming platforms, and mobile applications commonly used by young people. Many threat actors systematically target underage females, but anyone, juveniles, adults, males, and females, can be targeted. The FBI urges the public to exercise increased vigilance when posting personal photos, videos, or personal identifying information or direct messaging online. The FBI recommends parents look for the following potential warning signs: sudden behavioral changes such as becoming withdrawn, moody, or irritable, infatuated or scared of a new online friend or network, anonymous gifts such as gaming currency or other virtual items, scars often in patterns, fresh cuts, scratches, bruises, bite marks, burns, or other wounds, carvings such as words or symbols on the skin, wearing long sleeves or pants in hot weather, writing in blood or what appears to be blood, idealization of mass shooting or mass casualty events, family pets or other animals being harmed or dying under suspicious circumstances, family pets uncharacteristically avoid or are fearful of your child or you, law enforcement being called to the home under false pretenses, known as swatted or doxxed by an unknown person.
In Vernon, Connecticut, a young honor roll student was arrested for calling in bomb threats, getting the whole school shut down. And when police searched her phone, they found strange photographs of her paying homage to 764, sending them pornographic images of herself and photos of herself committing acts of self-mutilation and writing 764 in blood.
In 2024, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's cyber tip line received over 1,300 reports linked to 764 and similar networks. That's a 200% increase in just 1 year. 200%.
Victims have been extorted into flushing their heads in toilets, attacking their younger brothers and sisters, killing their pets, and in some extreme instances, attempted or died by suicide. To prove their loyalty and gain status and notoriety, members of these groups have committed robberies, sexual abuse, kidnapping, weapons violations, swatting, and even murder.
It's this evil, sprawling ecosystem that has targeted some of the internet's biggest platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Minecraft, Roblox, Discord.
Crazy shit. 764, this international cult of cyber nihilists that the FBI sees as a tier 1 terrorist organization, was started by a 15-year-old high school dropout and gamer named Bradley Chance Cadenhead.
Chapter 1. Felix.
Bradley Chance Cadenhead, who went by the name Felix online, was born in 2005 and grew up in Stephenville, Texas.
Stevensville, known as the cowboy capital of the world, is situated in rural Erath County, the largest milk producer in Texas, so it's surrounded by dairy farms. It's also very religious, and the Cadenhead family was known for never missing a Sunday service.
So there's this nerdy little boy named Bradley in this Texas Christian town that calls itself the cowboy capital of the world. Very rural, very wholesome, filled with churches and cows. But at just 8 years old, he starts watching porn on the internet, then becomes obsessed with torture videos, ISIS beheadings, and gore.
When Bradley was 10 in 2016, his mother moved out, later saying she was doing a lot of, quote, drinking and partying.
After his parents' separation, Bradley says he, quote, stopped caring about anything.
He became obsessed with mass shootings, started cutting himself and posting the images online, creating social media accounts that were filled with nothing but violence and real-life gore, all while he obsessively played Minecraft, literally sculpting and creating his own little worlds and seeking out others like him online.
Bradley would casually talk about shooting up his school and actually use the school computers to draw images of school shootings, which led him to be placed on juvenile probation when he was just 13.
The next year, he was briefly sent to a juvenile detention facility for violating terms of his parole, and is said to have, quote, routinely watched ultra-violent gore content online.
Probation records show that while under court supervision, Bradley refused to participate in counseling sessions, repeatedly left home without permission, assaulted his mother, and ingested so much Tylenol and cough syrup he had to be hospitalized.
But despite all this chaos in this kid's life, his online activities went completely unrestricted. And one of his favorites was, as we said, Minecraft, where he met another guy just like him who also loved gore, and they'd trade their most disgusting gore pictures, creating a little community.
And as Bradley sought out bizarre and dark fringe corners of the internet, like 4chan and 8kun, leading him to decentralized and encrypted communities on Telegram and Discord, he began to discover very disturbing groups espousing extreme nihilism and what's become known as accelerationism.
Chapter 2: Accelerationism. We talked about accelerationism way back in episode 44 when we covered Lyndon McLeod, that manosphere douchebag who went on a shooting spree in Denver, Colorado in December of 2021.
The term accelerationism goes back to the controversial and often misunderstood German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who said in his book, The Will to Power, that, quote, "The leveling process of European man is the great process which should not be checked. One should even accelerate it."
While Nietzsche was actually talking about cultural stagnation and not society's collapse, the term became a hot topic issue for philosophers of political science, and has been embraced by both the right and the left over the years.
The early left-wing accelerationists believed that accelerating technological and economic growth could be steered toward progressive ends, like equality and emancipation, and even a post-capitalist society. Karl Marx himself, saying that since capitalism pushes the antagonism of the proletariat and hastens social revolution, he voted in favor of accelerating it.
The right-wing accelerationists believe rapid growth and chaos would cause a collapse that allows a new and far less liberal order to emerge.
As it was all discussed in academia, picked up in the larger post-humanism branch of philosophy, and in particular with Prometheanism, and became fodder for science fiction writers like William Gibson, who helped create cyberpunk. Over the years, the term also wormed its way into hate groups, as networks of neo-fascists and neo-Nazis began to use the term to refer to right-wing extremist goals of racial conflict through assassination, murders, terrorist attacks to bring societal collapse and achieve the building of a white ethno-state.
Brenton Tarrant, who killed 51 and injured 49 others in the Christchurch mosque shooting, wrote about accelerationism in his manifesto, which influenced John Ernest, who burned down the Darul Arqam Mosque and then committed the Poway synagogue shooting.
And all of these white supremacist accelerationists communicated on the internet through different obscure channels.
So while accelerationism was originally intellectual theories for philosophers and became a violent cause for racists, it also infiltrated its way into internet meme culture, the nihilism of 4chan, and the weird racism of bored white teenage boys.
On May 14th, 2022, 18-year-old Peyton Gendron live streamed himself on Twitch walking into a Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo, New York, and killing 10 people with a Bushmaster AR-15 assault rifle.
Peyton says his obsession with violence and mass shooting began at the beginning of the pandemic, when he was bored and started frequenting accelerationist and white supremacist discussion boards on 4chan, as well as the neo-Nazi website The Daily Stormer, beginning in May 2020.
And in Texas, as Bradley Chance Cadenhead began digging deeper and deeper into the darkest corners of the internet, he became aware of an international online network of cyber criminals called the COM.
Chapter 3. The COM.
The COM, also known as the Community, is an international online network of young, nihilistic cyber criminals. The network has over 1,000 members, mostly teenagers, all under 25.
It's basically a hidden social network for extreme internet deviants, sadists, and criminals. A matrix of violent and extremist internet groups that chat and communicate using various messaging apps such as Discord, Telegram, Roblox, Minecraft, Twitch, and Stream.
The most dangerous branch of the network is called offline COM. In order to gain clout and rise in status, members will commit real-life crimes and post photographs of them on the servers, from minor things like vandalism and slashing car tires to serious crimes like arson, unprovoked attacks on strangers, animal cruelty, stabbings, and even murder.
The COM is also connected to a group of skinheads active in Russia and Ukraine, responsible for random attacks on people and acts of murder.
But it's not just sadistic and anonymous internet edgelords, cyber criminals, and random skinheads. Prominent people like Edward Korestein, a high-ranking employee of DOGE, or the Federal Department of Government Efficiency, was a former member of the COM. Yes, a guy entrusted with everyone in America's social security numbers was a member of a sadistic and infamous network of cyber criminals.
Riley Williams, a well-known participant of the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack in 2021, the lady who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop saying she was going to sell it to Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, is a member of the COM, and she bragged about the crime in the network's Discord server and admitted stealing other items. She was later arrested and sentenced to 3 years in prison, but was then pardoned by President Trump.
He looks like a Manson girl. She's got the long, straight hippie hair and that devilish glint in her eye and snarky, weird smirk.
The COM has affiliated themselves with the hacker groups like Black Cat and Alfie and conducted multiple cyber attacks against high-profile organizations, including HubSpot, Activision, DoorDash, Cloudflare, Reddit, MailChimp, Caesars Entertainment, Coinbase, Clorox, Riot Games, and MGM.
MGM said the attack cost them approximately $100 million.
Jesus. In August 2024, 18-year-old Veer Chattel of the COM stole $243 million worth of Bitcoin.
The COM was investigated in 2011 by Allison Nixon, Chief Research Officer of Unit 221B, a cybersecurity organization. And Allison said that the COM's crimes have been reported in each of America's 50 states.
In 2021, law enforcement agencies in the US, UK, Germany, Romania, and Brazil launched investigations into the COM.
Many of the groups that are a part of the COM openly advocate violence, terrorism, and the literal destruction of humanity through accelerationism, and state their core principles as radical nihilism and anti-humanism. Groups with names like the Maniacs Murder Cult, Sadistic Maniacs Cult, the Satanic Front, and No Lives Matter, which have released violent manifestos explaining their philosophy, as well as advice on how to commit assault and murder.
In order to appear more shocking and terrifying, a lot of these groups use satanic imagery and claim to be theistic Satanists.
So, some of you may be wondering what a theistic Satanist is. Well, the largest and most popular Satanist groups are atheist and view Satan as a poetic metaphor. While sometimes controversial, they're quite harmless and just see Satan as a representation of the ultimate rebel and not as a representation of evil.
But theistic Satanists, on the other hand, the left hand, often consider the devil to be very real and consider themselves to be evil, sometimes not only condoning but celebrating rapes and murders. Though to be fair, there are theistic Satanist groups like the Infernal Circle that do not condone violence, hatred, and bigotry, and see Satan as a benefactor and light bringer who gave humanity free will.
But many theistic Satanist groups do consider themselves to be the embodiment of evil. And one of these groups who embrace violence and hatred with very strong ties to the calm is the incredibly secret Order of Nine Angles, a dangerous cult from Britain that is rumored to have originated back in the 1960s. And I always want to call them Order of Nine Angels, but it is actually angles.
Members of the Order of Nine Angles are known to pose for selfies at horrendous and infamous crime scenes, celebrating the evil committed at those places.
This group has long been involved with horrible crimes, including the 1997 ritual sacrifice of an Algerian man in Killiers Park, Sweden.
There, two members of the Swedish Order of Nine Angles group, the misanthropic Luciferian Order, John Nidbite, the lead singer of the extreme metal band Dissection, and his friend Vlad Kostnud, confessed to murdering the man and were sentenced to 10 years in prison. Vlad was also a suspect in other murder and assault cases.
Then, and this is absolutely crazy, well, one of the stated goals of the super secret satanic death cult is to infiltrate the government in cells to destroy it from within and accelerate the end of times. And on the 23rd of December, 2019, Army Specialist Jarrett William Smith, 24, of Fort Riley, Kansas, was charged with distributing information related to explosives and weapons of mass destruction, and was accused of planning the assassination of federal agents and 3 other people for, quote, the glory of his satanic religion. He was found guilty to 2 counts of distributing information related to explosives, destructive devices, and weapons of mass destruction, and was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison.
Then a U.S. paratrooper named Ethan Melzer in the 173rd Airborne Brigade's Sky Soldiers plotted an ambush on his unit to, quote, result in the deaths of as many of his fellow service members as possible, end quote, in a plot with the Order of the Nine Angles. He pleaded guilty to 3 charges and on March 3, 2023 was sentenced to 45 years in prison.
But of all the bizarre hate groups and accelerationist movements on the comm, the group that had the most influence on young Bradley Chance Cadenhead, who would have been around 13 or 14 at this time, was the cult.
Chapter 4. The Cult.
Cult spelled with a V and not a U for some reason, was created sometime in 2019 by a 23-year-old business school student named Rohan Rain, an Indian immigrant and son of extremely wealthy parents living in Antibes, France.
Reportedly, Rohan was bored due to the COVID-19 lockdown, so he decided to create his own community on Discord to chat with people about his neo-Nazi and fascist ideas. A, quote, place to proclaim hatred of Jews and Muslims, end quote.
The FBI became aware of Cult in the spring of 2020 when a 15-year-old American girl unsuccessfully attempted to commit suicide by slashing her throat after communicating with Rohan.
Apparently, the girl had sent Rohan nude photos of herself after he formed a, quote, romantic relationship, end quote, with her and gained her trust. After he had the photos, Rohan blackmailed her to send him more, and if she didn't obey him, he threatened to send the photos to the girl's relatives.
The FBI notified French law enforcement, and Rohan was taken into custody on April 6, 2021, on charges of, quote, acts of torture and barbarity, corruption of minors in an organized gang, and extortion in an organized gang.
When police searched his home, they discovered more than a dozen videos of victims on his phone and computer, showing young girls between the ages of 11 and 16, filming themselves, cutting themselves, drinking bleach while crying, and attempting to strangle themselves with belts. Ugh.
While in custody, Rohan described himself as a, quote, psychopath devoid of any emotion, end quote, who hated humanity and said that he felt excited by seeing blood and violence.
He also authored a guide titled, quote, How to Get a Girl.
In this guide, he describes himself as a guru and brags about attracting dozens of young girls, claiming that all Western feminists have rape fantasies that should be exploited.
The guide explained his ways of attracting vulnerable young girls, whom he called his prey, in detail, and how afterwards he would threaten to ruin their lives and force them to mutilate themselves by shoving blunt objects into themselves, eating feces, and finally convincing them to commit suicide.
In a Reddit post before he was caught, Rohan described Cult as, quote, dark and sadistic, and said that he made his slaves cut his name on their bodies, and that the ultimate goal of Cult was to, quote, create an endless supply of masochistic people to satisfy my sadism, and my cult is existing for that very reason.
He also confessed to targeting girls of Jewish and Muslim origin, as well as, quote, feminists who denounced Hitler or Mussolini.
Rohan used Instagram and other social medias to promote Cult, including Roblox and Minecraft.
Cult targeted mostly vulnerable children and made them watch disturbing videos to desensitize them to violence and sadism. Examples include animals being tortured to death or women being raped on camera. Rohan's demands to the girls he blackmailed included requests to carve his name or Nazi swastikas into their bodies, masturbate using knives, drink bleach, or eat their own hair. All of the acts were recorded on webcams and broadcast live on the Cult Discord server.
Rohan stated that there was a hierarchy within Cult, and that members of the group were promoted to higher ranks based on the severity of illegal content they uploaded.
In 2021, after Rohan was arrested, a man by the name of Caleb Merritt, one of the cult's leaders living in Texas, was arrested and convicted of kidnapping and raping a minor. He is currently serving 33 years in Pocahontas State Correctional Center.
The girl later said that Merritt made her cut his name into her leg and pressured her to send him inappropriate photos of herself to prove her devotion to their relationship. He was later charged in conjunction with crimes against 4 more minors.
Chapter 4. 764.
So after Cult fell apart, Bradley Cadenhead, now 15 years old, who'd gained a reputation within the comm community for ruthless sadism and self-harm and skill at grooming and extorting minors, dropped out of high school and started a Discord server called 764 after the first 3 digits of his zip code.
He doused the 764 organization in extreme satanic imagery and stated,
"The goal of 764 is the purification of all living things through endless attacks. Evil has no limits. We won't stop until our goal is completed and all life forms are eliminated, and only 764 will remain. For us to achieve such ambition, the cult must share a single-minded passion for death. For him, there exists only one pleasure, one reward, one satisfaction, a successful hunt. Day and night, he must have but one thought, one aim, merciless destruction, striving cold-bloodedly, indefatigably towards his end. He must be prepared to destroy himself and to destroy his own hands, everything that stands of our goal."
In the comm network, these cells are like high school cliques, and everyone wants to sit at the cool kids table. And so they make people prove themselves before they're admitted in and elevated to cool status. Deranged teenagers want to be in 764, as Bradley, or Felix as he was known online, had proven himself during the cult era, developed a loyal following. He literally thought of himself as a cult leader and the other members as his followers.
Bradley had read Rohan Rain's manual on exploiting teenagers through extortion, How to Get a Girl, and taken it deeply to heart. Learned to make a role-playing game of sadism, extreme trolling, bullying, and nihilism, and took all of it to the next level.
Bradley and dozens of his weird internet friends would use the 764 Discord server and Telegram to distribute gore and child porn and seek out vulnerable teens and children to extort and victimize.
Using the handles of Felix and Brad764, Bradley moderated the server, which received hundreds of videos and photographs of extreme violence, animal torture, and underage pornography, some of which Bradley uploaded himself.
Bradley, or Felix, produced multiple how-to guides on sexually exploiting and extorting minors online and circulated them in their channels.
These how-to guides for grooming potential victims identified minors with mental disorders and illnesses as the most susceptible to manipulation. The detailed instructions document how to feign affection and draw victims in, then turn that attention into negative enforcement and sow self-doubt in order to bring that person to the edge of a, quote, borderline episode. The guide reads, "When they hit an episode, continue to break them down until they seem defeated."
Somehow the server repeatedly evaded bans from Discord, which says it first identified 764 and its hundreds of users in January 2021 and immediately reported it to law enforcement.
Beginning in June 2021, Discord flagged Bradley's online conduct 58 times for sharing, quote, images of prepubescent females engaged in sexual acts or in various poses nude.
Late that August, officers from Stephenville Police seized Cadenhead's cell phone. Law enforcement would later find a cache of more than 20 files of underage pornography, as well as photographs featuring, quote, "Brad is a pedo," and, quote, "764," carved into the flesh of unknown persons.
Captain Jeremy Lanier of the Stephenville Police Department stated, quote, "This wasn't run-of-the-mill child porn. This was a lot darker. There was one video of a woman being held down and stabbed. This case was awful. It was the worst stuff I've ever looked at in 6 years of working CSAM."
One of the victims snared in Bradley Cadenhead's evil web was a teenage girl from the Midwest named Eve.
In an interview, Eve's mother said her daughter was drawn into the network through gore servers on Discord, where kids would watch ultra-violent content, then be enticed onto the 764 server, where Bradley, just 15 years old, would charm and groom them, showing them affection and kindness, and convincing them to send nude photographs of themselves.
Once they established a degree of trust, Bradley and the extorters threatened to harm Eve's elementary school-aged brother and release her nude pictures to her parents and classmates. On video calls, they would urge her to kill herself and convince her to carve their usernames into her skin. They pressured her to strangle her cat and even to behead her pet hamster on camera.
"Bite the head off or I'll fuck your whole life up," Bradley, aka Felix, told Eve on the video.
Eve did all of this in her bedroom closet.
It is so fucked up. It's just cyberbullying taken to the farthest levels possible. And then Eve deeply cut herself one night in the bath to turn the water red, like one of her extorters had requested, and ended up in the hospital.
When she begged them to stop and tried to escape their awful network, they swatted the family's house, calling 911 and saying there was someone inside with a gun, causing the home to be raided by police.
They began calling her school and telling her principal that Eve had tried to murder animals, prompting school officials to report it all to the local police.
Eve's mother states, "You just don't realize how quickly it can happen," and notes that you can still see traces of the number 764 carved into her daughter's leg to this day.
Bradley admitted urging users in the server to carve his initials into their bodies as a form of homage, described his server as a cult, and said many of the participants venerated him as a cult leader.
After being arrested, Bradley Cadenhead pleaded guilty to possession with intent to distribute child pornography in May of 2023 and was sentenced to 80 years in prison.
They were not fucking around. 80 years for crimes committed by a minor. His lawyer says he plans to appeal and that mental illness played a deep part in all of it.
But as law enforcement investigated deeper, they found Bradley was just the tip of the iceberg.
Chapter 5. Gore Butcher.
The FBI then began investigating another core member of the 764 server who went by Gore Butcher.
Victims described Gore Butcher as aggressive, sadistic, and cliquish, refusing to interact with underage girls he deemed unattractive, and running an invite-only chat dedicated to the Order of 9 Angles.
Sophia, a young Canadian girl who was victimized by 764 for years, would say about Gore Butcher, "He didn't like me because I wasn't pretty enough. He made that very clear."
Gore Butcher allegedly is Angel Lewis Almeida, a high school dropout from Ocala, Florida, with a violent past and a long rap sheet.
By 19, Angel had racked up several arrests, including grand theft auto, domestic assault, burglaries, and armed robberies, and served time in 2019 for a series of car thefts.
At some point, after his release from prison in March 2020, Angel moved to a relative's apartment in Queens, New York, where his Instagram and Facebook posts show him posing with firearms and drugs, making threats of violence, obsessing over the Order of 9 Angles, and promoting intense child abuse.
In several posts, he poses shirtless while toting a shotgun, wears a skull mask baklava associated with murderous neo-Nazi groups, and brandishes a handgun at the camera while smoking speed from a glass pipe.
In late February 2021, he posted a photograph of a bound, gagged, and half-dressed young girl with the caption, "Life's always been shit, still I see the past through rose-colored lenses."
In the fall of 2021, Angel posted images on Instagram of himself in front of a Nazi flag and a computer screen reading, quote, "I'm addicted to hardcore child pornography," end quote, while wearing a shirt reading, quote, "Kitty Fiddler."
He also posted pictures of himself with a handgun next to a flag of the Temple of Blood, an American offshoot of Order of 9 Angles, run by a longtime FBI informant named Joshua Caleb Sutter.
The story of Joshua Caleb Sutter is insane. He was once head of the white supremacist group, the Aryan Nation, and lived on their compound, but got busted with illegal guns and a silencer, so around 2005, he became an FBI informant.
Despite snitching for the feds and being paid over $140,000 to infiltrate far-right hate groups, he remained very active, actually becoming even more involved in sinister organizations as he became a member of the Order of 9 Angles, writing books on theistic Satanism and the occult, starting his own publishing company called Martinet Press, publishing books that celebrated killing and raping children, eventually forming the Temple of Blood, a nexion or cell of the Order of 9 Angles. All of this while being a paid FBI informant.
And then he's actively promoting 764 on Instagram, and they all read his books and wave his flag around. Just what the fuck? The FBI refuses to say whether he is still an active informant or not.
It's insane, and it's just such a rabbit hole. We should actually do a whole podcast on him. It's like if QAnon theories are real, but it's not Democrats drinking baby blood. It's this far-right racist who's being paid by the FBI.
Well, as for old Gore Butcher, waving a pistol about online was enough to substantiate federal charges against him, as he was both a felon and on probation. When the ATF took him into custody in November of 2021, raiding the Queens apartment he was living in and finding a 9mm handgun, ammunition, the skull mask baklava, 4 electronic devices, and an Order of 9 Angles blood pact, whatever that is.
Sounds disgusting.
Investigators say his devices held hundreds of thousands of digital files, including reams of child sexual abuse material and communications with other members of 764.
Digital forensics of Angel's online presence show he groomed, quote, multiple minor victims from whom he solicited SCAM and whom he encouraged to engage in sexual acts, end quote, according to an October 2023 court filing.
But during pretrial proceedings, Angel, quote, interrupted counsel, made vulgar and threatening statements, and declined to follow the direction to stop interrupting the proceedings.
After one hearing, while being marched out of the court by two marshals, he looked around the courtroom and yelled, "When I get out of here, I'm gonna kill all of you. I'm gonna come after your fucking kids."
Jesus. The judge then ordered that he be hospitalized before she determined whether he had the mental capacity to stand trial.
And as of now, it is unclear whether he will stand trial or not. It looks like they may just lock him up in some mental hospital for the criminally insane, or they hopefully throw away the key. Because this guy is an absolutely remorseless psychopath and terrifyingly dangerous sadist. It's very scary. And as one of his internet handles was Duck, members of 764 and fans of his began posting free Duck messages everywhere and stickers of his photograph. And very disturbingly, 764 accounts and channels can still be found on Instagram, X, Roblox, SoundCloud, and Telegram.
Chapter 6: The New Era.
While investigations swirled against Bradley Cadenhead and Angel Almeida, a new era of 764 began to emerge.
One particularly violent member of 764's new generation was Tobes, a young German based in Romania, who joined 764 when Bradley still ran the server.
A girl named Sophia, who ended up in 764's world around the age of 15, from servers that were initially orientated towards hackers and sim swappers, says that Tobes was very popular among the hardcore 764 members, particularly Bradley, saying about Tobes, quote,
"He's a little psychopath. He used to take dogs from the pound and beat them to death."
Born in Germany and raised by a foster family in Romania, Tobes somehow discovered 764 in the calm, maybe while playing Minecraft, who knows, and after joining had 764 tattooed on him. He's also gotten deeply into the satanic acceleration philosophies of the Order of Nine Angles and gotten their septagram symbol tattooed on him as well.
In March 2022, Tobes attacked an 82-year-old man, causing severe injuries that hospitalized the victim. 2 weeks later, he fatally stabbed an elderly woman he thought might be Roma or Jewish, streamed it all on Discord, and later uploading the video to Telegram. After the murder, Tobes posted, quote, "I feel like God."
When Tobes was arrested in April 2022, investigators uncovered, quote, "a lot of material with violence in every imaginable form, beheadings, bombings, abused children," end quote. He was convicted of aggravated murder in August 2023 for killing the elderly woman and sentenced to 14 years in prison, which that doesn't seem much for killing a person.
No. The guy who took over after Bradley was named Riley, a Romanian national whose real name is Francesco.
Sophia, who spent years being victimized by Riley, says he is very charismatic, fluent in English, and was determined and hyperactive to keep growing 764.
She claims Riley gets more girls because he's more attractive, and said Riley encouraged 764 participants to generate as much content as possible, making videos of, quote, fan signs and stuff, like people stepping on birds, crushing them, and people killing animals. He would post a lot of animal killing.
Riley was also involved with the Order of Nine Angles and the Temple of Blood, and tattooed the Temple of Blood insignia, a trident topped with 333, on his forearm.
Riley was charged with possession and distribution of child sexual abuse material in the summer of 2023 and sentenced to 3 years in prison.
And the story of Sophia is particularly heartbreaking. She says,
I was a prize. You know, that's what the girls are. They're prizes. They're little show ponies. And eventually they turned on me and everything went to shit. And I tried to kill myself and severely mutilated myself.
According to child service records and police reports, Sophia had been sexually abused by her uncle before she even reached elementary school and had a history of mental health problems and substance abuse. 764 members would talk Sophia into carving their handles or server names into her flesh over and over and over again. She was also cursed into cutting swastikas into herself. They would fat shame her constantly in chats, causing her to develop an eating disorder and lose 60 pounds.
Sophia says she was around in the original server and watched the live stream where Eve beheaded her hamster.
Sophia also witnessed people seriously harm themselves in Red Room live streams, which were carried out on dark websites and then later shared in 764 chats. These experiences, she says, were incredibly traumatic, saying,
I watched a girl hang herself from her closet. She survived. I saw somebody shoot themselves right in the face.
Sophia was also victimized by 764 member Kier Anthony Cutler, a teenager from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, who went by the handle MK Ultra. And Kier is, interestingly, African American. He's a black kid, yet still uses all this Nazi imagery and white power crap, which really shows that these confused teenagers, they just use that stuff to shock and be edgy. It's also interesting that though these groups are steeped in Nazi imagery, they had no problem letting an African American kid join them, join their cult. As Sophia says,
I think it was more the power that it stood behind and not so much the actual racism and white supremacy.
Sophia says Cutler's behavior followed the 764 grooming manual to the letter, that he would routinely love bomb her and other girls with affection to build a report, and then turn on them with abuse and sadistic demands.
Videos show that Cutler forced one of his victims to eat her father's ashes on video chat, and another to cut her thighs and write his username on the floor in her blood.
The FBI was notified of Cutler in October 2022 when Discord alerted that NCMEC that an account had uploaded suspected child sexual abuse material to that platform.
Detectives from the Winston-Salem Police Department traced the account back to Cutler. When police arrested him and seized his devices, Cutler admitted to downloading CSAM materials and going by the username MK Ultra.
Forensic reviews of Cutler's phone turned up, quote, countless images of graphic self-mutilation by unknown persons. Images and videos of animal torture, imagery of cut signs featuring Cutler's handles, and images and videos of unknown persons committing suicide, some of whom were juveniles.
Detective Abraham Bosco did the analysis of Cutler's phone and said he discovered, quote, 700 images of the worst child exploitation in my career. Nearly every image of child sexual exploitation showed the child to be bound or restrained, and in many cases an element of sadism was observed.
Pierre Cutler pled guilty and in March 2024 was sentenced to 87 months or 7.5 years.
At the 2022 Europol conference, an FBI team gave a presentation to European law enforcement agencies that kick-started criminal investigations into 764 and the COM in Germany and France. Interpol was also brought in to help coordinate casework.
Criminal prosecutions of 764 and COM members increased significantly in 2023, with cases filed in the UK, Germany, and multiple US states. However, 764 and COM have persisted, re-emerging and splintering into dozens of new Discord servers and Telegram groups that frequently will change their identifying information to stay ahead of the platforms and law enforcement.
In late January of 2025, FBI agents arrested 47-year-old Richard Densmore at his grandmother's house in Kaliva, Michigan. Richard is an Army veteran who'd previously committed a sexual offense in 1997. Richard went by the handle Rabid online, took part in New Gen Com/764 circles, and ran his own Discord server called Sewer, where he would allegedly solicit and distribute CSAM of young girls. During a hearing for Densmore, prosecutors focused on his affiliation with 764, which they labeled an emerging threat.
And then there's the bizarre story of Kyle Spitz from Friendsville, Tennessee. This guy had actually gone viral for recording a video of his mom's boyfriend shooting him at point-blank range and hitting him in the ear.
You can find this video online. It's wild. This older guy, his stepdad, is waving a pistol and threatening Kyle and his mother, then fucking shoots Kyle as he's filming him. One shot that hits him in the ear.
The police showed up, obviously, and there was a couple-hour standoff. And then the stepdad shot himself in the head, committing suicide.
Then his mother ended up dead in a motel room.
It's really weird, it's extremely disturbing, and it's all over the internet.
So reporters went and interviewed Kyle's biological father, who told Headline USA that his son was involved in a violent satanic internet cult called 764. They started investigating and alerted the FBI, who then executed a search on his cell phone, revealing detailed communications with a 12-year-old girl, whom he was convincing to send him pornographic images of herself, using all the tricks he'd learned in the manuals.
Kyle pled guilty to 4 counts of child pornography, and part of his plea agreement entailed him to admit that he committed his crimes with a terroristic purpose in mind.
On February 2025, 2 members of Cult in the U.S. were arrested on 1 count of engaging in a child exploitation enterprise. The arrestees were Clint Borge, a 43-year-old man living in Hawaii, and Colin Walker, 23 years old, living in Bridgeton, New Jersey.
These arrests were initiated after a student at Iowa State University reported to the police that a person he met online was trying to coerce and abuse him.
On April 29, 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice reported the arrest of 2 key members of a 764 subgroup. 20-year-old Prasann Nepal, who goes by Trippy, was arrested in North Carolina, and 21-year-old Leonidas Varagianis, aka War, was apprehended in Greece. An international arrest warrant was issued against Varagianis, and his extradition to the U.S. has been requested, which he is attempting to resist.
And in July of 2025, a 20-year-old member of the COM affiliate, SR1, was arrested in Minnesota after allegedly stabbing a woman 20 times in a park.
In August 2025, it was reported that children on Roblox were being lured into joining a cult called Spawnism, which is based around an in-game symbol. Victims were reported carving the symbol into their skin in the belief that it would allow them to respawn after death, like a video game character. The Spawnism cult is believed to be operated by comm groups.
So here we are now, in November of 2025, and these horrible things are happening at this exact moment as we speak. Cult-like gangs of teenagers and young people finding sadistic pleasure and extorting vulnerable children.
This is so beyond awful. I don't even really know what to say. I've got like no words. And it's funny because as a parent, I mean, even just like as a human, but as a parent, it's like the internet is bad enough, completely separate from everything we just discussed. Like just the regular internet that these kids are on is full of body shaming and bullying and, kids seeing things before they're ready and just, AI assisted suicide. But now there's like this whole other deeper, far more horrific level. And it's just like very
My daughter
depressing.
plays Roblox all day.
Jesus. Has she ever said anything about seeing anything connected to like...
She says she won't communicate with anyone she doesn't know. I won't let her. And I'm constantly on her about the predators on the internet. So,
still so weird and just slippery and just terrifying.
it truly is absolutely terrifying.
And if you're a parent, talk to your kids. Warn them of the dangers lurking out there. And be aware of what your children are up to. Be a friend. Someone they feel they can trust and confide in. And if you're feeling isolated and alone and are thinking of self-harm, please know from someone who's been there that life gets better, I promise. We obviously don't sugarcoat things here. We know how fucked up the world can be. But it's also a very beautiful place. And it's wonderful to be alive. And if you or someone you know is struggling, you are not alone. You can call or text 988 or use the web chat at 988lifeline.org to connect with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, available 24/7. It's free and confidential. And you can always reach us at murdercoasterpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Stay safe.